Hello, I'm Neal Romanek. I'm editor of Feed, and welcome to the VOD Masterclass. And we have with us Viktor Underwood, who is CEO of Quickchannel, and Steve Russell, who is Chief Product Officer at Red Bee. And we're going to talk today about how to build your own VOD platform or your own OTT platform in the bigger sense. That content is becoming more and more important to every single business, and even businesses who weren't normally considered media businesses are now looking at how they can use video on demand and OTT video to boost their business, to drive traffic, to boost sales, to communicate with their fans or communicate with their employees. So thank you so much, both of you, for joining us.
Thank
Um,
you.
And yeah, so maybe just starting out with like imagining that I'm somebody who's, I've come to you and I'm a company and I'm thinking about starting a VOD platform or a video platform of some kind, because I'm seeing everybody do it all over the place. There's all these channels coming out. There's a guy I know down the street who's got a furniture shop, and he's got all these videos of his, the furniture he builds in the back, that he's online with. So what, as just a business, not even necessarily a media business, what you would think of as traditionally a media business, what are some of the benefits to launching a video based platform or VOD or OTT platform? Just to start with, do you want to maybe Steve, you want to kind of just kick us off with like, why should I bother?
I mean, if we're in a customer discussion scenario, I'd kind of flip it straight away. I mean, my first interest really is in you as a business and what it is you're trying to achieve. So in other words, launching an OTT platform or offer is not an objective in itself. It's there to support some other compelling outcome you're trying to achieve for your business. And that could be because you want to pursue a new revenue stream. It may be because you want to engage with your audience in a different way to what you have before. It may be because you want some sort of insights from your audience, and to understand how they perceive you in a different way and get hold of data. Or it could be any of another range of different reasons. So I think always for me, the right start, I'm a product guy, right? So for me, it's kind of let's not start with the outcome. Let's start with the need and what is it that you're trying to achieve, so that we can work out how to ensure that you're actually driving value into your organization. Technology is not an objective.
Mm-hmm.
The objective is what's going to make your business successful. And so, if within this kind of fictional conversation, you're kind of giving me more tech, I'm going to keep challenging that. I'm going to come back to it and say, you're not in the business to do blockchain. You're not in the business to launch an OTT. You're not in business to store. You're in business to do something else. What is it? What is it? The essence and the core of that? How do you drive value? And how do you think this initiative is going to fit with that? Because unless we understand that together, I'm afraid we're going to end up doing some cool stuff, but it probably won't ultimately drive satisfaction for you or your shareholders or your fans or your audience, depending on who you are.
And yeah, I guess that's a question. And Victor, I'd like to hear you on this. What is it? What things do I kind of be aware of? I mean, what opportunities are there? I think that's a question. Somebody comes into this and doesn't even know necessarily, may or may not know what opportunities there are available.
I mean, for most of the corporate clients that we work with, their objective that they want to is kind of reach out with information, using video to reach out with information to their audience. And then there could be a variety of different audiences. But the good thing with what we see from our standpoint, at least, the customers get a lot of value working with OTT or a video on demand platform for the communication, is making knowledge available on demand when the viewer and when the listener actually has time on their own. If it's internal for knowledge sharing or corporate information, or if it's the furniture shop doing product demonstrations and showcasing good furniture builds maybe that they've done, and in that way teaching their audience about the skills, positioning them as a thought leader or an expert within their trade, or even using it to generate leads or potential clients and new somewhere to start off new conversations to generate more business. So it got loads of different purposes and depends on the objective, but normally for at least the cases where we are in, it's to deliver information from a source to a wider audience. And compared with live streaming, which we're also doing quite a lot of it, on-demand streaming has got the true power of actually reaching the audience when they can and when they have time and when they have the focus. So I think that's the very, very exciting and interesting part about on-demand and building up a like knowledge library or a video library.
Steve, do you have anything to add to that?
I mean, I guess a lot of our customers are in the business of entertainment, whether they're sports organizations, broadcasters, or within the media and entertainment space. And so for those people, the essence of who they are is entertaining people. And of course, video has always been a very key medium for doing that. I guess picking up on your point, Viktor, I think what you're describing is businesses that their core is either retail or some other corporate interest, in which case the servicing of video is actually to achieve a different objective. It's to inform, delight, entertain, but ultimately drive people towards a retail encounter, I guess, or if you're in the hotel business, to come and stay in the hotel, or if you're in the soft drinks business, to drink your drinks rather than somebody else's. And both are very interesting, I think. And one of the things about our organization is we play across all of those different markets. So we're both playing with major brands that are doing a one-off streaming event and 1 million people will come and watch. And we're dealing with people that are a traditional broadcaster, have launched a global VOD service and are monetizing that through advertising, as well as dealing with, I don't know, wine companies or people that put on boxing matches and just enabling them to get their video and their content out to their users. And perhaps one of the interesting angles is it is possible to serve across all of those spaces. I still come back to the fundamental point is you've got to be very clear you have to be very clear what you're trying to achieve, I think. But for either of us, just throwing video out there is not the answer, is it? It's what are we trying to achieve and why?
Yeah. So I'm wondering what kind of what kind of experiments can somebody do in that area? And I think that's, that of course brings me to like the social platforms and YouTube and stuff. Like if I'm the, International Curling, Federation, for example, they may be very big for all I know. Sorry, Curling Federation, I'm sure you're doing very well. But I may have, just a YouTube channel possibly, and we're doing stuff, on there and showing stuff. And we're kind of saying, well, we've got some fans on here and stuff, but, we could build this into something internationally that could really make some money. Should we just kind of stay on YouTube, keep messing around on that? Or at what point do we move away from a social platform, or, how do we test the waters to find out, what the best move is after that?
From a sports strategy point of view, I think you've got to look at the different tiers within sport and think about what direct to consumer means at those different tiers. So you've got the global mega sports brands. I guess we can agree curling is not in that category.
Oh yeah, that may not have been unfair, but I was thinking of a sport that you wouldn't think of as normally being a giant, or like cornhole, which took off in the US, over the pandemic.
So for those are the kind of top tier of sports, they're going to be rights and relationships with broadcasters and major platforms is a major part of that business model. And so direct to consumer will quite often be, how do I engage with a super fan, and how do I augment the high and wide large revenue deals I have with broadcasters and platforms? How do I augment that with the stuff that they're not showing, whether that is youth games or pre-season games and that kind of thing. But I think with the lower tier sports that are more niche sports, the kind of OTT and direct to consumer is something quite different. It's actually a question of how can I reach that niche fan base, and of course it's always been very difficult. The answer used to be you kind of had to go and watch the game. You had to physically go and watch the game being played in order to engage with it. And what direct to consumer and OTT offer there is the ability to reach a very narrow segment of customer base that are potentially geographically spread over a very wide area. And in reaching them, you're helping the super fan to engage with the sport, and you're probably able to monetize that. So if you look at a sport like, I don't know, curling or triathlon or something like that, interestingly, people that are passionate about it are probably reasonably high income, families in some examples, and so they're both passionate about it and able and willing to pay to watch it. It wasn't possible before, and so the ability to launch those kind of services is very important. To your question around where does social fit with it, so where does YouTube versus a direct to consumer self-branded self-monetized service, I think there's a place for both. YouTube and social, very good for reach. You can get to a very large audience, but some negatives that it won't be your branded experience. It's probably somebody else's adverts that are being played next to it. So if you're a let's put it in the context of a retailer, if you're just using YouTube as your way of putting videos out there, you can't control whether your competitor is going to be advertising next to it or not. Certainly in terms of data, the ability for you to get data back is limited. And certainly within the advertising pie, if you're looking to ad fund it in some way, the slice of advertising you're going to get is very thin. So so the smart thing, I think, is to use those platforms for what they're good at, for reach, but really for the sweet spot of kind of really trying to monetize your audience, really trying to mine data, really trying to expand your brand experience and how people consume you. You're better off doing that in a more kind of closed environment of your own platform, and using social as the funnel towards that, but you're funneling them in towards something that you own and operate, as opposed to just having the high and wide funnel, if that makes some sense.
Yeah.
I think it does make a lot of sense, and it's very similar, apart from like the monetizing that our customers and what like our video on demand platform don't do. So we work a lot with business to business kind of communication. So if it's in legal or finance or banking or insurance or and that type of thing, when they want to educate some of the audience. And we've seen, I guess, from back in 2012, 2013 and onwards, was a big push out to all social. So if you were gonna live stream or upload video, you had to be on YouTube, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Snapchat, on et cetera, like all of these channels. And then we saw that it's been a bit of a shift back again, exactly to what Steve says, that you use those social media channels to position your content and drive traffic into your own play channel, your own branded experience, where you can get more data out of turning them into leads, sharing other valuable premium content to the viewer, and engaging with them so that you can start a business relationship, which is the point for many of our clients with their video communication. But again, if you're running like your recorded training session or conference day or product presentation day or webinar, and you upload it on YouTube or you upload it on LinkedIn there or Facebook, you have so many reports showing what you have: 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 12 seconds attention span. I mean, it's the same. If someone would say, Viktor, look at this really valuable training session, we want to promote our consulting services to you, and then they give me a YouTube link, I'm going to click on that link. And within 8 seconds, I'm going to click on the Olympic ice hockey highlight on the right that is being advertised, and they're going to lose my attention span like that. But if they would instead put me into their play channel where they have their brand, their content, and then would lead me on to a next move and next movie, I would probably send them an email saying, hey, you look pretty good, you're a consulting firm, can I get engaged with you with the project? Like, so it's very similar, but we are working with a little bit different, like our customers.
That's really good. That kind of distraction point is really important, because it's always the point of YouTube and social is that click, 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 isn't it? It's kind of just to try and just keep your attention by feeding you the new thing. And I'll give you an example of a customer we work with. They're called 67 Pall Mall. So they are a wine club. For people that enjoy fine wines, this is the kind of, you join the club, you get access to personally chosen wines, and of course their business is partly about sourcing and building relationships with vineyards and enabling their customers to get access to fine wines. But the interesting thing is the story behind the story, the story behind the vineyard, why the person that founded it put it in the region they did, and why the unique combination of the weather elements in that region. And they produce these kind of stories in 4K, and they actually run a TV channel with it as well. And it's all within a kind of closed, personalized environment. And believe me, you watch it and you get drawn into it, and you want to be drinking that wine. Do you know what I mean? It's just so beautifully shot. It's so beautifully produced. And it's the opposite to Viktor, what you're describing. And there's no distractions around it. I think the ideal for them is people buying the wine, getting the crate delivered to home, and then sitting there and enjoying it, listening to two experts talking about it and talking about the backstory to it, and just getting so much more value out of that wine that they're going to drink anyway. And that's interesting, isn't it? They would use the same medium and the same technical solution as we provide to Ekstraklasa, which is a Polish football federation. It's the same underlying platform, but the use is just so totally different. And the value of not being in that noisy social media space that Viktor was describing, I think is absolutely central to what they're trying to achieve with their customers.
It's interesting that there's something there, I think, about bringing people into your own platform, but it's also, at least certainly with that case, about making something that's a bit exclusive, and that you can come here for this, and you're here for this and only this, and forget about all that other stuff, which is the opposite of being out in the social media space where everybody's throwing stuff at you all the time. So is there something in creating that channel or creating that platform that you need to go beyond just having some great videos there, a website with more videos on it that doesn't have YouTube recommendations on it, or is there other things that you can do to increase that engagement, or to make that platform more appealing, or to make it more of a space that people want to go and hang out in?
I mean, from my experience, it would be to, and what Steve was saying before as well, to create a branded experience. So it's your brand on your Play channel that is also your brand on your videos, and you get that full customer experience. And I think we also see a bit of a trend out on the social medias and the deep fake videos and all of this. So if you come to a Play channel of that company or of the brand that you are looking for information from, and looking at their videos in their channel, it also increases trust on the where the source of the video is coming from and the information. But I would say other things in our experience for corporate video on is to make them easily searchable, to make them easily index navigation, because if I find a 1-hour training video on a topic that I'm interested in from a company that I'm interested in, I'm probably just interested in the 15 minutes of the expert that was talking in the second to last part of the agenda. So if I can navigate and move around to that, it's valuable. and then from the person or company having the play channel to be able to draw data. How much usage do we have? How many views? Who is watching? Maybe try to like gather some contact information to start a marketing automation process with your, like, yeah, to build again, to generate new contacts or enrich your existing ones using video as a driver.
Yeah, I mean, the other theme that I'd bring in on this, just having just listened to you, Victor, is I'm a product guy, so I look at a lot of things through a product lens, and I think you can apply some principles of product management within the offer. And when I was listening to Victor, there's quite a lot of different dimensions to the way, you know, your question, Neal, was, you know, how do I make sure that it's kind of unique and compelling, and what can I do to make it? And in some ways, I think you've got to be careful not to overcomplicate everything from day one. One of the advantages now is that in order to get a service to market, the bar is far lower. It's easier now to launch a service, and so what that means is that you can actually play that to your advantage and consider what your minimum viable product, MVP. This is a product concept. What is my minimum viable offering to get out? And rather than trying to think about everything it could be, get that minimum viable capability out to the market early. And then it's about listening and adapting and evolving. You know, there's this kind of fail fast concept that you might actually find that it was a dumb idea, and so nobody watches, and so you cut your losses and move to something else. But hopefully, more interestingly, you look at the data, you start to talk to the people that are using it, and you listen to them about what you like and what do you think is missing, and having that kind of sensitivity to the way that the users are interacting with your offer, and then evolving it over time, which may mean adding features, you know, like the snippets or the indexing type services that Victor was talking about, or it might be actually the platform is fine, you need more content, or you know, or maybe it's that the marketing and the awareness isn't strong enough, and so you need to do a better job in terms of driving people towards it. These are fairly, there's quite a number of things you've got to get right. And I suppose what I'm trying to say is I'd encourage people not to try and think about all of those up front and try and get everything right, and then specify this enormously complicated thing that never gets to market, spend a load of money, and then finally find out that you've got something wrong. Flip that totally, and try to get a service out there. Try to be sensitive to the way that it's being received, and adapt and evolve. Agile product management. That's the idea.
And is that with if you're doing something, say, in corporate, and I know you also do work with government, Victor, which I can imagine government, for example, being very much like, no, we really need to see how this whole thing is going to play out before we decide to do on this. What kinds of that sort of minimum viable products do you see, like in that corporate environment or government environment? You know, if they are training or, you know, communications or something, and because it can often be like, oh, we're going to do this across all departments now, you know, or we're not going to do it at all. What kind of things have you seen that have worked?
I mean, I agree with Steve on like having the MVP kind of mindset, and that's how I look at like developing a business and so on. So I think it's a good concept for many purposes, and not only in product. But again, for the clients, if they haven't worked with video before, then to start working with video communication can be a step. Thanks to these 2 last years, many people have worked with video somewhat. So like the minimum education, also in maybe a government organization that hasn't been so much in the forefront of technology before, will have been video educated a bit. So then it could be to launch a play channel and start publishing your material. There's a big trend in government now that they can't use the YouTubes and and the likes due to GDPR and Schrems too. So they need to have a European provider to publish their content in, and then they can use like a standard video library setup that could be found with us or with others, just to get going. And then you can make it more advanced to then get other kind of content in, do indexing, put it with security for internal communication, or start doing live streamed events into your page, and then like expand. And then it could be like video can be used for so many things today. We've seen it from corporate and government video communication to live stream gym classes during the pandemic lockdowns, or funerals to be delivered to people who can't travel, or press conferences from smaller hospitals that didn't reach TV before, but it has had weekly updates in the last years, and so on. So start small and adapt and be sensible to your audience. I think that's a key advice. It's so you don't do a big tender specification from a government standpoint, more likely like a 6-year contract and a huge idea of all departments in and across the agency has been putting in their demands, and it's the monster to deliver, and it's a monster to use maybe, or won't give the value that was originally intended. So start small and dare to start work with video, I would say, if you haven't. That's the first step.
Okay. So you mentioned, I could hear some discussion about data and all that in there. And what are some of the benefits of, if I'm working within my own platform or not, of using data? So, YouTube, a lot of these public platforms or social platforms, there's a lot of good data I can get from people. And there's also a lot of stuff that I'm probably maybe even getting through my marketing, software, whatever I'm using for that. I can probably get some good data. What are the benefits, and what are the kinds of things I can get, and how can I use that, if I'm using video on my own, using my own video platform?
I mean, I guess again, this kind of comes down to what's the nature of your business and what what are you trying to achieve. But I think point one is that if you are running your own operated platform rather than distributing on a third party, you're going to own your own data. So so point one is, can you access your data? And then point two is, are you being provided with the tools to be able to kind of slice, dice, analyze, and see patterns within it? So certainly with a provider like us, I'm sure it's the same with Quickchannel as well, that's kind of tick. You do own your own data, and yes, we do provide you with the kind of rich analytic tools out of the box so that you can mine that and understand it. And so that's a good starting point. And I guess your question really, Neal, is kind of, okay, so if that's Basecamp, what do I do with it? And what would I try to discern from it? And that, I think that depends on what your business model is and what you're trying to achieve. It could be a geographic lens. It could be pulling together cross points in terms of what you know about your consumers and what you're seeing within the data, and building up a kind of more complex view of your audience to the extent that you can within GDPR rules. And then I think the other side is from the content itself. What are people's behaviors, and how do they differ across the portfolio of content that you're providing, and how does that differ in the way that you're packaging or formatting it? So so some examples of that would be, when I'm presenting a VOD asset which something someone discovers either through search or through a recommendation engine, and watch that VOD asset, how do they behave versus when it's presented in a linear format and maybe they didn't choose to watch it, and it's just serendipity, they just kind of came across it. Can I see patterns within the way I produce things as to where people stop watching and just switch off, and how could I change the way I produce content on that basis?
What have you seen with that, Viktor? I mean, of course, the obvious one is that you're the CEO can see who's seen the video and who hasn't.
Yeah, I mean,
Did you watch my yearly announcement or not? But what other kinds of things are there?
Exactly. It's a requirement to get promotion at Quickchannel. You need to
Yeah.
tick. No, but regarding data, like Steve said, it's if you have your own platform and you have your own content on that platform, and then you distribute it on there, you own the data. You also can analyze the data, and I think for our customers, it's a lot about seeing what kind of data performs better, or what kind of video content performs better than others. And what kind of trends can we see? Okay, if we're doing a live event and it's one type of length, and you have the viewers engaged the way through with live things, but for on demand, then maybe shorter content or easier to search and find index pieces and so on is more important. But then in a business to business space, and we're used a lot for like marketing videos, product videos, webinar videos, and so on. It's a lot to convert the viewer into a contact somewhat, and then it's to say, okay, this person watched it and watched it for the whole, or did only watch this part but watched this twice, and then based on that you can then personalize your maybe outreach and your relationship building with that client, even if you're a law firm or a bank or a consultant or what it might be. For governments, it's more from data, then it's more like that it should be compliant, so that the experience is accessible with accessible compliance rules, and then that the data is stored in Europe if they're under EU legislation. And maybe for some government communication and video on demand platforms, they want to install it in their own data centers or in some kind of a hybrid deployment. That could also be like a data question, because they want to have full control, and it's sensitive data, but that needs to be managed in a nice way and reach their audience. That might be a very isolated viewer group compared to if we're talking like wide open on demand platform.
Right. And then monetization, I think, is one of the key things. You've got advertising, you've got subscriptions. You know how, and in the case of government, maybe there's some other things to think about, like how do you turn these video assets and the video channel itself into something that is revenue, or maybe in the government it's case of influence or something else, but you know, that using these video assets, the platform, to generate prosperity in whatever sense that is for your business or your organization.
Well, one of the interesting ones that we did last year was it was a bunch of musicians from the Netherlands, and there's an annual event in the Netherlands, and it's called the Friends of Amstel, and it's a little bit like a national music festival, I suppose. And it happens in January each year, and all the top artists traditionally go to one of the big venues in the Netherlands, and you can't get tickets for this. It's like it's the golden ticket you can't get hold of. It's so popular. And with COVID, of course, it couldn't happen as a physical event. And so literally in the December, they decided to go to streaming, and they asked us to help. And we said, sure, you know, just tell us how many people are likely to turn up. And we said, they said it's usually 150,000 people go to the event over 2 days. And we said, sure, okay, well, we'll gear up for that. And then they started getting the tickets out. And in the week, in the build-up, it went for 200, 300, 400,000, 600,000 tickets, you know. And we were like phoning the CDNs and just making sure we had capacity to kind of run it. Now, the monetization model there wasn't paid for tickets. It was actually that Amstel themselves were the sponsor. And because it was a streamed event rather than being on like national television, it gave them a lot more freedom in the production. And so one of the things they had was, if you imagine it was during COVID times with social distancing, they had all the artists, all the musicians at a venue kind of singing. And when when they weren't performing, the other artists were kind of watching what was going on, and they were being served beer, and this kind of waiter going around who's dressed in like Amstel gear, giving them beer on a long, like on a tray on a long stick, so that he didn't get too close, and obviously it was Amstel beer, and it was actually a really natural way to bring the brand into the entertainment event. From Amstel's point of view, they were like the national trending thing on Twitter. It was like a really big event in the Netherlands, and you wouldn't be able to do that on TV. You know, you can't place the product in that way within an entertainment experience, because there's obviously broadcasting regulations around product placement and beer drinking and all of that kind of thing. And I thought that was a really interesting example of how you can. It was literally 2 or 3 weeks before they decided to stream it, and yet we kind of had millions. We had over 1 million people watching it live on one night. But also the monetization point, Neil, to your question, it wasn't pay-per-view. It wasn't actually. There's no advertising in the kind of automated advertising that you might see on YouTube on there. It was paid for through this sponsorship, and the sponsor got the value out of it because they were able to integrate their product with the entertainment in such a smart way. You know, very, very interesting combination of enabling fans to see something, artists to perform, and a sponsor to integrate with an experience. Everybody's happy, you know.
Yeah, Victor, do you have any angle on that from your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So like getting kind of monetizing, or in our world, like getting return on investment kind of on your video efforts or on your communications efforts even. So one way of looking at it, adding video on demand in your communication mix, like gives you great return on investment for many things. Like an example, I went to Oslo in Norway this week, and we did a live event, or like a hybrid live event on Tuesday from a TV studio and so on, and had some different presentation on how to succeed with hybrid events, and that we had a certain number of viewers watching it live and engaging in chat and polling and so on. And then we could see from doing that 1 hour session, publishing it on demand within a minute or two, and then we had, in the next few hours, watching it the next day, we had reached a larger audience on demand already within 24 hours than we did at the event that has been marketed for. And so I think a lot of, especially in the business to business context, that if you do publish something that has been an event, maybe not as big as the Amstel event, but like some kind of event where you inform about something and then make that available on demand, you extend the lifetime of that event, and the cost per seat, or maybe the potential leads or revenue per viewer that you get on that video over time is just, it's super powerful to see. So in that context, we see return of investment increasing a lot when you're using on demand on top of live events.
Okay. So we're going to have to wind up here, I think, in a little bit, but kind of on the cautionary or negative side, what would you say are like is the big challenge, the big pain point that people need to be aware of? You know, what was the one thing you would say to them that, like, okay, look, be careful of XYZ?
I think this comes, for me, it comes down to my previous point around don't bloat the initial launch. I mean, there are so many things that you can do with streaming, and certainly service providers like Red Bee, or, you know, I'm sure Quickchannel as well, can support a whole load of different functional and format approaches. You know, so yes, we can do live, and we can do catch up, we can do linear, we can do on demand. You can do monetization through sponsorship, through subscription, through advertising. We can launch you on all the devices, you know, like to kind of phones and iPads, and to smart TVs, and to web, and there's all these different dimensions you can add complexity in. And as a service provider, we'll support, you know, all of them. But as a as a, I don't know, customer with a need to launch something, just don't try to do too many dimensions all at once. I would say don't overcomplicate your offer to the market and fall over through not getting it to market in the first place, or in constraining together this kind of very convoluted set of features and functions and kind of content offers, and just make it a horrible experience for the consumer because it's all tangled in some unfortunate way. And so, you know, to get out quick, keep it simple, and evolve over time. That'd be my big message.
And for me, I would advise, I agree with one thing, like don't make it more complicated than it needs to be, start somewhere. And then the one advice as well is to like, don't hide your videos. Like sometimes we see people launching a play channel, but then no one knows where to find it. There's no links on the website, or not easy to find. It's not marketed anyway. And if no one knows where to find your play channel and your video on demand content, no one is going to watch it, and then it's not going to bring so much value. So that's something that we sometimes say, oh, now we launched it. Okay, where do we find it? Oh, it's 11 clicks down on the government website. And then you're not informing the audience that you're intended to. And then, of course, the results are going to come being less by that as well.
And then one sort of positive thing, what is the kind of the one thing you would say to encourage people to start their VOD platform?
Yeah, like if they are working with live events and then can turn them into VOD and manage that content as well for the viewers, the reach and the return of investment, or the reach to the audience will be much greater. And then also today that expectations are high in some sense on the viewer experience, on the technology of the VOD platform. Yes, sure. But the quality of the content, so to speak, has been a little bit lower throughout these 2 years. You have CEO town hall sitting from a kitchen table, and you have, mobile press conference videos. So do dare to start work with video and create videos and publish those videos. The impact that you will see compared to using text and emails in a corporate communication sense it's tremendous when you start. So do dare start video.
And it can be fun. You know, that's the other thing I'd say. There's so much in life that is tough at the moment, and there's so much within running a business is about dull things like finance and logistics and just practicalities. Actually, getting entertainment experiences out to consumers is a wonderful thing, and by working with a service provider, you can take a lot of the technical pain away and just focus on the advantages, focus on your audience, focus on your content, and we'll take care of the heavy lifting to make the whole thing work. And so, maximize the fun without taking all the pain of launching a service, on your own shoulders, and hopefully that'll be a good outcome.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, Steve, Viktor, thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing you again soon.